Hi, thanks for tuning in today to Front Porch Conversations here at the Advent Christian Village. And on this beautiful day, we are on the porch at the Copeland Community Center. And to visit with me today are Ann and Chuck McCollum. Welcome.
Well, it's nice
Good
to
morning.
be here.
It is a pretty place to be, isn't it?
It's
Yes,
gorgeous.
it is.
I would like to ask you, Ann, when did you and Chuck move here?
In October,
And where do you live?
Dowling House.
And so you've had a little chance, Chuck, to get to know the village.
I have.
And there'll be more to know as time goes on, right?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Ann, where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio as a child, and I had many great adventures in Cleveland growing up as a kid, and being able to just play outside and with all the neighborhood children, and had a great time growing up. Being back in the day when you were allowed to be outside and catch fireflies and go in when the porch light came on, that was your time to go in
That
the
was
house.
your signal, wasn't it?
That was the signal, and just great childhood memories until I was about 13, and then we moved from the city to the country. And
And where was the country?
the
located?
country was Medina, Ohio. Actually, it was Valley City, Ohio. And that became a great culture shock because it was country. There were no stores around. I mean, it was country.
Chuck, what about you? Where were you born?
I was born in Ashland, Ohio, and my father managed feed mills, so we happened to move quite often to different country towns. But we ended up near Litchfield, Ohio, and I went to a school system in Medina County where when we went through, we ended up going to the same high school as my beautiful bride in Buckeye High School, and that's where I met my wife. And of course I had to teach her the rest about country life that she didn't know. And I was raised not on a dairy farm, but working at a dairy farm growing up through that time zone. So I knew about the farming and the cows and getting up and going and milking and coming home and then going back and milking and cleaning the stalls. And, as young as I can remember carrying pails of milk, because back at that time, you didn't have the actual pipes that took the milk from there to the parlor. You carried them out and you dumped them into the tanks to get cooled down.
And I bet at that time you didn't have milking devices.
Well,
So were they automated or were they by hand?
We did.
Oh, did you?
But they weren't the kind that went into a pipe. So you had to, after you got done, you had to pour them into a pail and then carry them on out. Unless you had cows that had different issues and so forth, then it was hand milk. But you didn't have self-feeders. So one of my jobs was feeding the cows and so forth. And each cow had a tag, so that meant each cow had a actual amount of feed that you gave that cow according to the production of the milk in which they were producing at the time. So there was a lot of work that went into it, and they didn't have the self-gutter system to clean out from behind them. That was another one of my favorite chores, was cleaning those gutters out behind them. And that was a lot as a kid. I wouldn't change a thing of it from today's life. You learned how to work as a kid. And that's farm life that, man, I'm so grateful to have had in my past.
And did you milk cows or do anything else farming wise?
Oh, no.
Well, it's always been on my bucket list to milk a cow.
No. No, I never had the desire to milk a cow. We had a couple of horses when we moved out, and some chickens, and Dad was just kind of playing around. We didn't have a lot of acreage or anything like that, but he did build a stall, and we did have a horse or two, and I did learn how to ride, a horse and stuff. But other than that, I had no desire to milk a cow or play with pigs or
I have not much desire to play with pigs either.
like that. I really was a city girl. I wasn't a farm girl.
Tell me about when you first met.
We met
Oh, jeez.
we met in high school, and they were putting on a movie in the gymnasium, and we happened to sit beside each other, and that's where we met, watching a movie in the gymnasium.
So Chuck, did you have one of those moments, this is who I'm going to marry?
Oh, no. Not at all.
No.
And we were watching the movie, and now I can tell you the name of the movie,
What was it?
Cool Hand Luke. And we were sitting there, and I had been to a party at her house, and where I went with another friend of mine, that her sister was having the party, and I went with him to the party, and I was definitely too young to have been at that party. But I had met her, but I did not really remember her. So when I sit beside her at the movie, I knew who she was, but I don't know how we held hands sitting at that movie, but somehow we did. That was the first time we ever touched. That's the first time we ever had any association at all. And I can tell you, I honestly believe God put something in that at that time that made the difference in both of our lives, because the journey that we have had since started on that day. Mm-hmm. And we didn't know God actually at all at the time.
How long was it before the two of you got married, Ann?
We dated about 2 years, and we got married when we were 19, and this June will be 46 years.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I thought it was 47.
I think y'all should settle that later.
See what I know?
Where did, after you got married, where did you live? And
We lived in Medina.
okay. Mm-hmm. And I understand you have two sons. Is that correct?
Yes, we have 2 sons. Our oldest son is 35. Our second son is 34. We have 6 beautiful grandchildren, and they are just the joy of our life. And we try to get to visit them when we can. 3 of them live down in Claremont, just outside of Orlando. Mm-hmm. The other 3 are in Gainesville. But they keep such busy schedules. It's hard to keep up with them. But when we can, we do.
That's what grandparents do.
Right.
When they can.
In fact, this Saturday we're going to our one grandson's last basketball game. And he's 7, and he's, all over the place, but so excited.
Well, Chuck, the other day when we were visiting, you told me that you had 200 boys that you raised.
Well,
How
I
does
don't
that
know
fit
if
into
I
the
could
picture?
actually say raised. I can say they've lived through the house with us, and
what
they've
was that
spent
house?
several years with us. Some of them came in earlier, some of them came in later in their lives. But it's at least 200. It could be give or take a few. We are blessed to still have quite a few of them in contact with us still. Many of them came out of juvenile justice system to stay with us. We were also very blessed for a time that I heard the Lord tell me, do not take any juvenile justice money. Do not take money from children's services, that I will provide. And he did.
Yes, he did.
And we refused every dime from any other government agency that we could trust God and prove to the kids to trust God, because the one thing you always heard was, you're only doing this for the money. And we needed to prove to them that the God that we trusted was their provider. And it wasn't any agency, and it wasn't anybody else. And it actually, even though at times we worked together 3 different jobs to help provide.
Right, we worked outside of the house.
But we couldn't provide that kind of an income. Between her and I working 3 different jobs, we still couldn't afford 10 kids in the house at one time providing groceries.
Boys, particularly.
Yeah.
Yes, teenage boys. Yes.
And the greatest thing that I can say through all of that is, throughout all the years, number one, I never got punched one time. Number two, through that time, she never was touched through all that time.
They did actually, believe it or not, respect me in a way that the kids don't do today.
Yeah, completely different.
They very much respected me.
Yeah.
When did you start doing that? About what year?
Well, we started taking what I call,
Said the early 90s?
well, 90s was when we started taking in kids from
Juvenile justice.
juvenile justice.
But it was
In
probably in the 70s.
1977 was the first time we actually raised children that was not our own. And that was actually family members from deceased, my deceased sister, that were trauma-based children because of things that they went through. And I was even thinking this morning, thinking about coming here, even though we hadn't accepted Christ, God had put in a love for us in our hearts to be able to love others, even when we didn't know that he had put it in there. The ability to love kids that are not yours, that are going through trauma in their own personal lives, that you don't understand at all. Mm-hmm. That kind of love is an unconditional love that only he can put in there, that is a calling that he places that just doesn't come.
And it just developed from there.
And then from there, it went from there to other people's kids, from other people's places, to this, to that. And the next thing you know, we're doing it and we're not being paid from anybody, not getting anything from anywhere else. And we're just raising kids. And then it went from there to, oh my gosh, you mean people actually get paid for this? And then we went into different programs and started doing house parenting. And then from house parenting, it became actually being professional house parents and teaching house parents. And throughout it all, the one thing I know for sure, it's all spiritual. And as I shared with you the other day, moving into Dowling House, I realized it's still spiritual, and we're still working, and we're still developing our skills and using the love that God has placed in our hearts, and knowing that it's for such a time as this that we have been called into ministry, and it's His, it's not ours.
God changes our ministry or our location sometimes, not necessarily our ministry, but maybe the population
Absolutely.
we're
Right,
serving.
exactly.
I can't get up and stop a fight like I used to. I can't do the things that I used to do in that manner. But as I told my oldest son the other day, I'm honestly at Advent Christian Village living my best life at this point in my life. I couldn't ask for a better life than what I'm
You
living
can't
right
just turn off the love that's inside of you. You just can't do it.
now. I'm getting to give. I'm getting to receive. I'm getting to go to the garden. I'm getting to be able to refresh, renew. I can't even believe the life we are privileged to live being right here. And yes, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyhow. I can go down to the local store, to the village store, and wear my Ohio State stuff in there and mess with them in there because they wear that ugly Florida State stuff and feel free to be me and them be them and be welcomed and feel like I belong in the village.
Yeah, you even told me the other day that my Georgia Bulldog mask is not your favorite.
Oh, it definitely is not. But it's the point
And that's
is,
okay.
and the point is, it is okay. It you know, the one thing I've learned about the village and being here,
What's that?
we are accepted. The village is a place of acceptance.
And you're okay to be yourself.
And when I go to the garden, and I used to think about gardening as growing my vegetables. She likes her flowers. That's okay. But I used to think it was a place about growing my vegetables. I've since learned it's not about the vegetables. It's about the community. It's about the people. It's about having a place to be together with like-minded people that like being out in the fresh air, that like being down there, from different backgrounds. I've met people that, quite honestly, maybe wouldn't have taken the time to get to know how much I care about who they are as a person. And, you know, when I used to do what I did, I was very comfortably being in front of judges and lawyers and people working with kids. And I could hold my own in the court just fine. I can be down to the garden with the same type people and still be, at this point in my life, just fine. But we have a common ground, and it's called God, and it's called love, and it's called community. Advent Christian Village to me, and I shared with you the other day, when we moved in here, that's not what I felt when I first walked into our apartment. It was so hard.
Well, and to have to move in when you've not even had the opportunity to see it.
Correct.
Correct.
You know, that would make a big difference, I think, to anyone.
Well, going
Correct.
from 3,500 square feet to 5,000 square feet to Dowling House, one-bedroom apartment. Complete culture shock.
Yeah, I have to
Big
admit,
furniture.
it took me a long time to adapt. It really did. And then, like I told you, I finally had to get myself out of the way. And, you know, I had a talk with God. And,
Tears.
many tears, and just say, okay, God, you've put me here for a reason, and it's time for me to just get myself out of the way and be grateful and thankful that I've got a safe place to live and a roof over my head and people that are going to care about me, and just get out there and meet people. And I am so grateful that I finally did that, because I have met some of the most wonderful people.
And there are many more to meet.
Yes, there are.
Absolutely.
Yes, there are.
Carol, what was the time that things in your life surprised you, other than this last episode you just talked about?
Things of my life that have surprised me. All those boys, I can tell you that. I mean, I've had so many surprises with them, but I've had so much fun with some of them. I mean, I never really realized that some teenage boys are really just big babies.
And I think you said that what you did with the boys often was helping them regain their childhood. And
Yes.
that really struck a chord with me.
Yes, they did.
They got to be that age and never really...
We would make a slip and slide out in the front yard. And now we're talking 13, 14-year-old boys here that never got to
boys.
really experience this kind of stuff when they were younger. And they had the most fun just getting to be wet and muddy and, I mean, you know, and not get fussed at for getting muddy and wet and making a mess and everything. And just be kids for probably the first time in their life. And we let them be kids. And that was some of the most surprising things to me, to learn that they never even got to get muddy and wet and just be kids again, you know. And they loved it. They just loved it.
Chuck, you were recounting a little experience to me as we walked in today about your time in Uganda. Would you tell us about that, about you and Carol being there?
And
Anne, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Well, we went to Uganda using a Ugandan mission board. I can advise any of you thinking about going to Uganda without using an American mission board, don't do it. It's a mistake.
And probably lots of other countries as well.
Yes. However, I was going for the purpose of helping to raise funds to raise a orphanage. And at the same time, we were teaching on the moringa tree, because I had did about 10 months to a year studying the moringa tree and the properties of the moringa tree and the benefits from the leaves of the moringa tree into the villages that was growing that they actually at the time did not know about. What I didn't realize as I started to do the teaching, number one, the administration was realizing they could make a profit selling the leaves, the product, and making money for administrations for the government instead of getting it into the villagers, you know, the orphanages. Because I learned the orphanages, the villagers, they had a lot of food. What they didn't have was nutrition. The moringa provided the nutrition that the kids needed. All they had to do was dry it, get it to the point of a powder, and shake it on whatever food they were going to be eating. And the food, the moringa tree had already proven to take care of so many of the diseases and so many of the things. Well, that wasn't what they were wanting to hear. That was a profit for them. That was money making. And then my desire was not to preach the amount they wanted me to preach. They were wanting me to preach 3 to 5 nights a week And I really didn't go there to preach. I went there to teach on Moringa to raise money for the orphanages. But for the mission I went to through the people, it was going to give them more clout if they had me out preaching and doing around the field. And so I ended up preaching and going around different places. They don't do a prayer meeting like we do a prayer meeting here. Their prayer meetings were all night long. If they were going to say they were going to have a nightly prayer meeting, that's exactly what they meant. It was all night. If they said you were going to preach a Sunday service, that's what they meant, a Sunday service. It was a whole different experience for us. I got in a little bit of trouble when I told the president's men no, I wasn't going to be a part of some fundraising that didn't turn out real well.
I understand you had to make a hasty retreat.
We did. We even made it to get pulled out of a car in the Uganda airport by gunpoint. And the guy that took us to the airport, I don't know what he said, but he was talking mighty fast. And at some point, the guy that had the gun that pulled us out of the car put us back in the car, and we got up to the gate. When we got on the airplane, even when we hit Amsterdam, I wasn't ready to kiss the ground yet. I was still too busy shaking. And when we finally landed in Atlanta, now I was ready to kiss the ground.
And praise God for being here.
And
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask a quick question to both of you, and I think you're greatly able to answer this. What advice would you give a young person today?
I think I would have to say, whatever your goal is, whatever your dream is, and I've told this to some of the other younger guys, even way back then, just keep going forward. Don't give up. Always look towards God. He will provide, even when things look the darkest. Just keep going forward. I had a young man one time, and he was about 13. He wanted to play, do magic. And everybody told him, no, it's stupid. And I told him, I said, listen, if you want to do magic, just do magic. Just keep practicing. If that's what you like, just keep practicing. And today he's in Las Vegas doing magic.
Wonderful. I bet we could go on and on with many wonderful stories, but thank you all so much for joining us today on the front porch here at the Village. And I hope you'll join us again too, watching on TV too.